Welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Bill Reiman, your broker builder. And today I have a special guest coming from close by Tampa, Florida. She loves helping business owners have a better relationship with bookkeeping and their finances. She chose to use clarity in her company name because she hopes to make the numbers clear and easy to understand. She has seen over and over how proper bookkeeping can increase profits and doesn't need to be viewed as just another expense. She has been a bookkeeper most of her adult life. She graduated from Penn State with a BS in finance. She worked for 7 years with a CPA firm as their QuickBooks expert, trainer, and bookkeeper. She's an advanced QuickBooks Certified Proadvisor, which we just talked about that, and I think is very impressive too. But Julie Shopa, welcome to The Real Build. I'm excited to have you on. I haven't had anybody on, in your profession, and I'm excited to talk some finances and bookkeeping with you today. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to have you, like I said, because this is such a huge topic, and whether it's business or even people's personal lives, and especially in my industry. I mean, you were just talking about it a little bit before, with construction, there's so many things going on that builders should be keeping track of too. And even in real estate, I do real estate as well, and it's so important. So I'm happy to have you on. We're going to get into that a little bit, but what I like to start out with is kind of asking about your background. So who is Julie Shopa?
Let's see. I mean, that could go in so many directions.
Have at
As
it.
far as, yeah, so as you had said, I went to Penn State, ended up with a degree in finance, was in accounting, and decided, I don't know if I want to be a CPA. And then I ended up working for a CPA anyway. But I've worked for a number of small businesses too, throughout the years. I seem to have been in the role of ending up doing the books there, but also office manager, human resources, everything that needs to get done that falls to that office manager person. So I've watched a lot of family businesses, including my dad, my uncle's business. I worked for them at one point, but the dynamics of a really small business where it might be mom and pop, where people are especially helped in situations where the person who was doing the bookkeeping, this was after I was consulting, but not working in a specific place. But when they would call me in, the person I was training didn't really want to be doing the bookkeeping. Like the wife and the husband's like, especially for contractors, builders. So I also know how to make QuickBooks less painful to work with people. So I've done that kind of thing, but I always liked making it easier so that, helping people to see that once you get everything in there, there's great information, and then you can use that information to drive your business forward, to help grow your business, to be more profitable. That's the part that's, to me, is really the fun part, is when you get the information together and you look at it and use it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, one of the things too, it's just, and you brushed on this, was that there's a lot of business owners that don't know how to proper bookkeep, but they don't want to deal with it too,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how things get unorganized. You start losing more money than you actually know. You're wondering where the money went and so on. And especially in my business too, it's just, there's so many things throughout being a custom builder, throughout the build, that you have to keep track of
Mm-hmm.
too. And if you're not keeping track of those things, I mean, it can really hurt you in the end, and it's going to fall back on it too. So, it's so important what you're doing. And then, like we kind of talked about a little bit before, is, QuickBooks, how important that is. And not a lot of people really dive into it and know, because they get intimidated by it. You see something like that, you see all these numbers and so on. I wasn't the best at finance, and when I went to college too, it wasn't my favorite thing. I was a marketing and business major,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just, it's just something not everybody wants to do, and you're doing it, and it's a great thing to be doing as a profession too. So that's for sure. But I want to talk about your life a little bit more. So, like, how did you get into bookkeeping? What was your reason that you chose to be a bookkeeper and a QuickBooks expert, over other industries? Because it's not something a lot of people do.
Well, there's a couple different things. Actually, my godmother was a bookkeeper, and so
Okay.
when I was, and I guess so, I became aware that that's what she did. between, like as I was going off to college, just the idea that she had her own business. She was living in Aspen and had some great high-level clients, and who were really nice to her and had a lovely life, having her own bookkeeping business and had her own hours and stuff. So that was, and she was raising her sons, and so in the back of my mind, I was like, that would be something someday, that I would do, and then I ended up doing it. But the way that I ended up having my own business was almost by accident. And then I ended up circling back to what I had thought, oh, maybe I'll do that someday. I was working for the CPA firm. And at that point, I was raising my sons, and I was actually working part-time. And another company that was just a contractor, they hired me away from there, matched what I was getting paid. And it was closer to home. I could wear jeans to work, and it was like closer to home. So I was like, okay. At that point, I was already an advanced certified Proadvisor, and the certification goes with the individual. It doesn't stay with the company. So all I had to do was just go in there and like rename that line for the company and change it. And people started calling me from just seeing that listing, because at that point, I was living in Pennsylvania. So I was living in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, and I was the only advanced certified Proadvisor coming up on the list if people were searching for QuickBooks help and they went to the QuickBooks site to search for Proadvisor, which QuickBooks tells people to do. So they market that for you. And I started getting people calling me, even though I had this other part-time job, and then I'm doing, so it's like, all right, I can do both. And then, then I was at that other part-time job for about a year, and then the economy went, and they started laying people off, and they laid me off. At which point, I was trying to decide, should I just get another part-time job and then do this on the side? And my son's dad's like, he said, you always complain about your part-time jobs. Why don't you build your business? I was like, okay. So basically it just happened, even though it was something that years and years ago was like an idea in my head. So that's kind of how that happened. I mean, so I have two sons. I was a soccer mom. I loved watching them play, and my younger son is obsessed with Real Madrid and all things European soccer. So soccer was that was like my vacations, travel, all related to soccer, pretty much, and wherever they were playing. So that's kind of, and I love the beach, which is how I ended up, being happily located in Tampa now, which I'm not on the beach, but I'm close. And
Very close,
it's warm
yeah.
all year round. It's a half-hour drive to just stick my feet in the ocean. So that's, that's a huge perk.
Well, yeah, you can't complain about that too. I mean, so your job, basically the bookkeeping job, obviously gives you a lot more flexibility too. I mean, you probably do a lot of work from home more now too, and so on as well.
Everything is virtual. I went completely virtual when I moved from Philadelphia to Tampa. That's one of the reasons I was able to move. I started seeing more and more of my clients on QuickBooks Online, and they're like, no, we don't even have office space for you. You can do it from your office or from home or whatever. And when I saw that trend, I was like, I think I'm just going to go all virtual and move. I could live wherever I want. Where do I want to live? Warm and sunny by the beach. Then I visited Tampa. I was like, I like it here. This will be my warm and sunny by the beach. So that was in 2016. And this is something I always thought it would be fun to just pack up my Honda with whatever would fit and drive off into the sunset. I got to pack up my Honda and drive south. So not exactly into the sunset, but so that was kind of cool to be able to do. But now
you get to watch the sunset more, right? So there you go. Compared to Philly, because I'm originally from Illinois, so there wasn't as much sunsets there as you got here. Not
plus
as nice
over the water is always better.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to I want to talk about your services you provide a little bit more. So I went on your website. I did my research too, and let's start with bookkeeping. So, as a builder, and I brushed on this, it is so important for me to keep track of transactions that our clients make and keep the clients in the loop as well. So what does a bookkeeper do, just so people know, and how can it benefit a business like mine or other industries?
Well, the main part that a bookkeeper, the main function is to keep track of all of the money going in and out and making sure that it's properly documented. So it's kind of like keeping track of history rather than
Mhm.
projections or forecasting. For when you're a builder or contractors, you really need to do that job costing piece, which is not something that every business needs,
Mhm.
but it's really important there. And so for me, when I'm going in, it's not just, okay, I'll just put stuff in QuickBooks. I also need to talk about how your information moves, like who's doing what, how am I going to know what job it is? Or am I training somebody that's going to be on site that follows around the person that buys stuff for the job so that they can enter it? And so a lot of it is, what are your processes?
Mhm.
And especially when I'm working with somebody like a smaller firm where the builder's doing a lot of stuff themselves still, and they have a lot of it in their head. Part of what I do, so this is actually, I guess this is outside of bookkeeping, but it's important to the bookkeeping, is you got to like get what's in their head out and put it into a bookkeeping system that works so that other people can help, like
Mhm.
me, for and so that I'm able to get the information I need to get them what they need. Some of it is also at getting clear on the reports that they want to look at. um, I feel like you have to kind of be able to understand how, the thought process of whoever the client is,
Yeah.
because a builder does not think like a bookkeeper.
No.
So I know that I need to know all your bank accounts. I need your bank statements. I need to reconcile all of that. And that means everything's in there. But that doesn't mean it's in there in the way you need to see it. So I have to make sure that I'm understanding what reports you need to see. How do the jobs need to be named
Mhm.
so that someone can find them? Are you going to use the property address or the owner? Like thing, and so that I can find it, they can find it, and all of it. There's all those extra little details that make it work better, that I have to ask a lot of questions like that, especially in the type of industry like you're in. Even for either one, I mean, property management stuff is also,
Mhm.
there's all those extra details, and every expense has to go with whatever the property is, those types of things. So that's extra information that you can't just capture from a bank feed that's connected to QuickBooks like you can for, if you're a life coach, or something that's just not a bunch of different pieces. It's just, so a lot of it's asking good questions in the beginning to plan it right and set it up right. Then it's maintaining the system, making sure that everything's right, talking to the client, because even though I can put it into to the best of what my knowledge is, it isn't until you see it and look at it and it makes sense to you
Mhm.
too, that I feel like it's really right. Because what if I decided some expense, for some of my clients, they might be paying the same vendor name, but it's a guy that's there putting up drywall one time, and the next time it's the drywall itself. Like, so that needs to be coded differently.
Yeah.
It's supplies versus subcontract. So I need to make sure that if I can't tell that, then I need you to tell me that. So there's that whole piece of it too. So it's not just inputting the data, reconciling, it's talking to the client, making sure it's really looking the way you want it to look. And that what's going on in there as well. Because if you never look at it, like you said, you might not know what you spent. So that, to me, that's my job, is to say, okay, let's look at the numbers. Here's what you spent before. Here's what, or like for this job, that doesn't look like you spent much, but when you were talking about the job, it sounds like you've done a lot of work there. What am I missing? Like asking things like that, because those kinds of things as well. And a good bookkeeper should definitely look at the balance sheet too. Uh, a lot of bookkeepers are going to be like, of course, but I have followed bookkeepers where they definitely did not look at the balance sheet, because you wouldn't leave it that way. So that's something that, so you want a complete look by somebody.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying, 100%. And even, there's builders that listen to the show, and it does make sense because we all have our kind of different ways of doing it. It depends on
mhm.
company size, like you said. In part of like my bookkeeping, what I would love is more of a breakdown. I mean, we have a decent breakdown with subcontractors, and then some materials and so on. But if I can actually break down the material, it actually help me with the bidding process. So when I'm bidding a job, it would probably speed that up. So, that's, and, with the actual material cost. So what did a 4,000 square foot house cost us for lumber material? You know what I mean? So
especially if you're doing similar projects.
Mm-hmm.
That's the I mean, yeah. But even so, with custom home builds, if you're in the same area, some of your stuff's going to be close enough that information would be great to have and comparable.
Yeah, and that's.
I mean, $1 million home is $1 million home.
No, you're right. And I mean, that's the thing, especially if you're in the same area and I'm building a 4,000 square foot house, for example, and they're pretty similar. The exterior framing cost is probably going to be pretty close to the same thing as well. And the same with the material cost on the lumber side as well, too. Stuff fluctuates here and there, obviously, as costs go up, labor costs go up and so on. But yeah, I mean, what you're doing is actually helping it and making it a lot easier for the builder too, because I mean, every builder, and especially new ones, I mean, we've been around over 25 years now, so our accounting and stuff has obviously grown over the years and gotten better. But these new builders going into it, I mean, the one-man show or one-woman show, whoever's doing the building, they're handling everything, so they're maybe not as breaking down as good as what you're saying too, and that can affect them and their customer as well, so, and their costs later on.
And it also, I mean, it makes you have to redo each quote is like from the very beginning. You're reinventing the wheel type of thing more than you would need to. You can get a little bit of automation in there with it, by pulling past information. And especially if you are at a point where you want to hire somebody to help you, you've got to have something for them to look at. Otherwise, you're going to have to walk around and explain everything because it's still in your head, and that's not helpful. That becomes cumbersome. So it's that I think is one of the more challenging pieces for all of us as we grow in our business. It's like, all right, how do I bring on people to help me, and how do I do that efficiently instead, versus,
and how do I trust
standing
them?
there? Yes. And how do I check it too? That's another thing that, like, especially with builders, a lot of times I really will train somebody that's there, that can do a lot of the daily stuff of putting in the expenses, making sure they're going to jobs, that type of thing. And then I'll come in maybe monthly and reconcile, or even quarterly, just to make sure that everything's looking right, and be a source that can call for questions, that type of thing. And so that's like another set of eyes on it, as well as just somebody to help brainstorm how to be more efficient with it. But it's that way they have somebody that's more knowledgeable about all of the builds, because I'm not going to know that, unless I'm there, kind of, because so much information it's not usually, there might be a pile of papers of stuff, or actually not even that as much. So much is electronic anymore. You don't even necessarily have a bin of papers waiting for you when you go somewhere. So being a part of the project, that person has a better knowledge than the bookkeeper that's coming in even once a week or something like that, or logging in, because I can only see so much. I can see a lot, but some of it, it's like, all right, here's all the things, or if I will also, sometimes I'm training the person to do a better job with their quotes, or, hey, did you know you can turn the quote into an invoice by clicking this button? Oh, you never did that? So how can we save time for people by just things they didn't know? Because no one has time to be a QuickBooks expert if you're not getting paid for it. So
no, and I mean, it's a trust, and it's like you said, going in and training somebody that's been there too. It's a trust thing. You're dealing with a builder's money, you're dealing with somebody's money, whatever company it is. So, people, when
usually larger amounts too. So it's like, you make a mistake, it's usually going to cost a lot, and the margins aren't huge. So if you make a mistake, it's going to cost you a lot probably as well, and you work so hard that you don't want to lose something because of that. Yeah. No.
What about on the real estate end? Because this obviously has to do with people, with real estate and clients purchasing real estate and everything too. My show does, and I have a lot of realtors that listen.
Hmm.
What about bookkeeping on a realtor's end? Have you dealt with that as well?
Some, yeah. So it depends, because there's realtors that are not just, that's the wrong way to say it. They're selling houses and they
Mhm.
are real estate agents. That is actually really simple to do, because the majority, they've got the commissions coming in, and they may have a whole bunch of different expenses. Usually a lot of it is advertising, um, type of stuff. The softwares that go with, I guess Zillow, whatever they have to pay to, I don't know whether they,
Yeah, CRM stuff like
and
that.
all
Yeah.
of that type of stuff, maybe, and maybe some of their sales team, but it's not, there's not that job costing piece like when you're buying properties to rent or flip, and you need to have all those costs broken down and buy the property to the property. That said, there's plenty of real estate agents who also own properties and also do multiple things, because why not build wealth as many ways you can?
Hmm.
So then you have to make sure that you're setting things up separately to accommodate that. To me, one of the things that I've seen, especially with real estate investors, is they understand how all the money came in, but it's not necessarily well documented for someone else to look at it. So if you've got 5 people putting money into this job, and then they're in like maybe 3 different bank accounts. Oh, well, some of this went from that. Oh, wait, I didn't tell you about that other bank account. So that can be really challenging from a bookkeeper's perspective. So setting things up in the first place, the way you set up your bank accounts, can make things really simple or really complicated from my perspective. So that's kind of something. I don't usually get people calling me though before they start. It's usually after they're in the middle of it. So then we just have to work on that. But I'll have a lot more questions if you send me a spreadsheet that shows me all these different people, different accounts, money coming from different places, and no bank statement. Like, I want your bank statements. I really do. Type of
Yeah.
thing. Because I work that the bookkeeper, or at least the way I work, is I work from the bank statements out and recreate what
Which makes
happened.
sense.
But the business owner doesn't think that way. They're thinking about, here's what I do in my business, working the opposite direction. I found when I explain that to people, it helps them understand why I need the bank statements, first of all, but it also, our conversations better when they realize that I'm kind of going the opposite direction, but how it folds together and it gives you the complete picture. And it's like the checkpoint, because the bank, what really went through the bank is what really happened. And the IRS looks at the bank. The
Mhm.
IRS isn't, you don't want the IRS in your QuickBooks. Like, they're, you just tell them what happened. You print the thing out. They don't go into the actual software. That's not good.
No,
Then they
no.
see more than the year they need to see. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, that wouldn't be good at all,
but they
too.
would. They might ask for bank statements, because they're going to want to see, well, how much money went in. What do you
Mhm.
mean that's not income? Prove it.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, and like
whatnot.
an audit situation and so on
Yes.
too. Yeah. And I mean, and you started brushing on this too. So you come in a lot of the times midway through with a business, that's been up and running and so on. So I know, like you said, you also offer like a cleanup and catch up service. So let's explain this
Hmm.
a little bit too. So this is obviously all about getting people back on track. So how do you do that? What is the cleanup and catch up that you're doing?
I think that's just like the term that I came up with, because sometimes somebody will come to me that had, like, I had a client that came to me, they hadn't done anything, they hadn't filed their taxes or anything for 5 years. And they were referred to me by a tax attorney, that because they got a letter from the IRS and freaked out, understandably, uh, and found this tax attorney online who happened to, say, well, you'll have to get all this information together. And this person did not know, they didn't know how to get that bookkeeping information together. Probably if they had known how to do that, they would have done it all along, perhaps. So that person was referred to me. And that was a huge project, but we recreated 5 years worth of bookkeeping for the company. and then, turned it back over to the tax attorney to work magic between, with the IRS to help them out. I don't actually know the result of that. I don't think it's done yet, but my part was done. But, so that kind of thing, usually that's probably 5 years is one of my longer ones. I mean, I've also had people come to me after their company, they had to declare bankruptcy, but then the IRS was saying they owed all this money and they were going to file amended returns because they didn't think so. And then the person that was going to file them said, well, somebody has to put this in QuickBooks and it's not going to be me. So she had to pay me after the business was closed. And it turns out she was running at a loss. She wanted to do a friend a favor. So the friend was doing the books, but nobody made sure that the friend was doing it right. And that was, so there's stories like that are just like, oh my gosh. I forget what your original question was. Cleanup.
Yeah.
So basically if you have multiple years of stuff and you need it the back work done. So that's like catch up if nothing's done. Cleanup is if you have maybe a year or two in QuickBooks and it needs to be fixed. Like you need that data. That's usually also a case where maybe the tax return for 2018 has not been filed either. So you have to get that together. Somebody has to get that together so that can be filed. More normally, it might just be the past year. Like maybe stuff was in the bank feed, it was downloaded in, somebody just clicked okay, and everything went in and it's not where it's supposed to be, or just things are missing. There's a couple common things that someone that doesn't know QuickBooks that well, but QuickBooks, other business owners will tell each other, oh, just get QuickBooks, it's easy. Well, it's not easy for everybody. And it's easy to make mistakes. QuickBooks will let you continue to do the same thing wrong over and over, and you'll never know unless you know where to look, so there's a couple things that will completely misstate your revenue or expenses. And that is if you combine the use of invoices and payments, and then you have a bank feed and you take anything that's deposit and hit the income account again. Because in QuickBooks, when you create an invoice, it books to income. So if you also take that deposit and book it to income, you're doubling your income. Well, you don't want to pay taxes on money you didn't get. So that's not good. And then the other side of the situation is true. If you use the accounts payable feature and you enter bills, and then instead of using enter bills, pay bills, you write a check again for that, or you let the bank feed amount just go through and you hit the expense account again, you're doubling your expenses. And you might be leaving your accounts payable looking like you owe $10,000 when really you paid all those, but you never attached it the right way in QuickBooks and cleared it, stuff like that. I'll see stuff like that. So I can clean that up and train people, especially if the person wants to continue to do it themselves. It's like, please let me show you the right way to do this, because you're gonna have way better information, and it'll take me like 10 minutes to show you how to do it.
Well, it's keeping, the most important thing out of that is just is keeping organized. And people get into business, the money starts coming in, they don't focus on the money going out, and then the organization problems start happening, or they start losing the money and so on. And being in the building industry, I'll keep going back to that because it's so key, is that especially on if we're doing a cost plus custom build and we have billing going out every single month, well, we want to make sure that everything is kept track of, every single expense too, because if we miss something, then we're losing money as the business. But if we overcharge on something too, we don't want to overcharge our customers, because that's not the way we are. So just keeping track of everything, knowing the proper ways, and knowing QuickBooks, like you're saying, is so important too, as far as running any type of business, but especially being in the construction business, like I keep saying, because there's so many little pieces throughout the whole process.
I will say, if you look at your reports monthly, you would probably see, like, the people that have done those mistakes and they kept going, they weren't looking, maybe they looked at their bank account, like online versus, and was making decisions that way, or maybe they all they were doing was creating invoices and sending them out, and people would pay them. So they knew that was happening, but they weren't looking at the actual, like, a profit and loss report in there. Because you would, if you pulled up a profit and loss report and looked in a month, you would clearly see, I didn't spend that, or I didn't make that.
Yeah.
What's wrong? You would at least know that, oh no, I need help.
Yes.
You know, but so there's so many reasons to at least monthly look at, have reports that you look at to see, do they even look right? Because that's the first thing, especially as a business owner. But that's the first thing I do too. I'll pull up the profit loss and balance sheet. Do these look right? Okay, that's believable. Let me look further. As a business owner, you will probably look at it and know whether it's right or not. I have yet, especially builders, I have yet to meet one that does not have a very good sense of where they are on the job, how much they've spent. Everyone knows how much it costs to put like a labor cost, how much it takes to put a man on the field or like in a truck or whatever. They all have like an idea in their head of what it is. Like, so it's like, you guys know your numbers, you picture them in a different way, but when you're shown the way that I prepare it, and I tell you, this is this, this is this, this is this, you would be like, yes, no, whoa, like,
Yeah.
that would definitely be what happens. That's what I see. It's just a matter of looking at the right numbers and realizing that it should say what you think. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't, you need to find out why.
It's having it, like we call it our overhead to our personal company overhead, and having an actual idea of that actual overhead too, because you have your profits coming in, you pay your subs, you see the expenses, but then you have your percentage that you make off of those. But then overheads, who works within the company, what you're paying them over each and every job, which is it's a challenging thing. I mean, I'm sure if you broke it down, we would be like, whoa, a lot of builders listening to this would be like, wow, like I'm paying their
that might
labor
be a piece
this.
that
And
yeah, that's the easiest part to track though, because you don't have the job cost that
yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah. That's what's challenging about it too, because we have a laborer on a certain job. It's hard to keep track of how many hours he was actually on that one job when you have 7 other jobs going. You know what I mean? At the same time.
Yes. Yeah. So that's when it's like, depending on the size and do I need a timekeeping thing, system, an applicant, because you can usually get timekeeping applications that will coordinate with QuickBooks. There's definitely different ones, and you can probably get them on, on your phone, or it depends what you have in the way of staff though. Do you have someone running the schedule who's, cognizant of that maybe could calculate the times themselves? Do you make the workers report that in? But somebody does need to gather that information in some way, but there are, apps that make that easier now because I remember I've had to do that where, from the card and write it on the sheet and let the payroll company, it's a little more automated. It can be now.
Yeah. I think we're still doing it the old school way, but we just where they're writing down their time or our labor.
Well, to some extent, somebody has to put it in somewhere.
Yeah.
There's got to be like a person to something.
Which, implements that time into
Yes.
that. Exactly. And there is software out there too. And I'm a big fan of Co-Construct. I actually had one of the heads of Co-Construct on my podcast, and they have an actual thing that connects to QuickBooks, and you can time stamp in too, so whoever has access to the actual app can punch in through the app, but then it's just, okay, when are they actually punching in if they're not reporting so that's where you get that question too, is they can be anywhere and say, oh, I started working, but they're 30 minutes away. So so that's where that factors in too. So it's tough too. Anyway, but one question I wanted to, so we brushed on a lot of little things too. So how can a builder or a realtor, for example, or a real estate brokerage or any of them manage money better? What are some strategies that you suggest in my field, or even business in general? I got a lot of people in different businesses that listen to this too. It's just, this show's more dedicated towards showing the client, but obviously, you coming up with these strategies for these businesses are going to better the client too as well. So
I really feel like the most important thing is tracking that, keeping up to date, accurate information, and actually looking at it is huge, really, because if you're paying attention to those reports, if you get into a pattern of, like if you have weekly meetings and maybe you have a board with these are the jobs that we have going on, who's going to be doing what, and then it's somewhere at some point you have whoever is doing the books prints out the job costing reports. Part of that meeting can be, all right, this is what we spent so far, or somebody looks at it, because usually what happens is you look at it, it's like, I'm missing, who didn't give me the invoice from this, or but it's like the place to make sure to double check, is everything in there? Okay, it's there. Here's what we spent. Oh my gosh, hey, we're ahead of budget, or you need to get this done faster. Especially when you're for building, any kind of time delays is a huge cost factor.
Yeah.
So being efficient and getting things like getting supplies there so that when the workers are there, the stuff's there. As you know, those are actually huge things to track, which that doesn't get tracked in QuickBooks, but those are like factors or numbers or whatever to track that will make a huge difference in your profitability with jobs. So it's mostly a matter of coming up with a pattern of consistently tracking it and going over it with everybody. Like, I mean, not that you're going to share the entire profit and loss with everyone in the thing, but somebody should look at that, like, or you as the boss would look at it first before the meeting or right after the meeting, like something probably before the meeting. But it's more about having that habit. I mean, another thing, I know that somewhere in here you mentioned profit first, which is I'm a profit first professional, so that is something that I help my clients implement, and it's based on the book Profit First by Mike Michalowicz. And for people for business owners who have been doing most of their spending decisions basically by logging into their phone, to their bank account on their phone, and like, there's enough money in there, I can pay this, this, and this. But then, 2 weeks, it's like, crap, I forgot about payroll, or like, if that's kind of the scenario where you're like, where is the money? Why don't I have money set aside for this? Because I forgot I even needed to pay it. Setting up Profit First is a way to have that money set aside. Like, you get a system of moving money into, you have multiple bank accounts, and it's sort of similar to grandma's envelope system, but it's done with bank accounts. So having that system, and the focus, why it's called Profit First, or one of the many reasons, is it takes the equation that your accountant would say, it's sales minus expenses equals profits. And Profit First says, no, it's sales minus profits. Take your profit first, set it aside, and then make your business run and be efficient on the expenses come last. Make sure that your operating expenses don't take away the profit, because your business isn't going to be sustainable unless you're having some kind of a profit. So that's that whole piece. So I also help businesses with that as well. And of course, the results that people have gotten, even when you're looking at it, you're like, I don't have any extra money. How can I do this system? How am I going to be able to move money out? I need it all. You just start like small. Even if you just have like one profit account and you put 1%, and just when 1% of whatever comes in, and you move it over there and you don't worry about it. Even if that's the only thing that you can do, people are finding, at the end of the year, there's a little chunk of money sitting there, like, and it's almost like magic. Money sitting there. It's like, how did that happen? I didn't even feel that type of thing. And so that's like, it's just start type of thing. But some of my clients that are using it have just the relief of, at tax time, especially when, they go to the accountant so many times. A business owner goes to the accountant, and the accountant's like, oh, well, you owe this much for taxes. What? How could that be? There's no money in the bank. Well, that isn't that feeling. You go and you're like, yep, I know I made a profit. I got my money set aside. And you can have that happy feeling, which is actually what you're supposed to be able to have, business, a healthy business is supposed to be profitable. You should not have to feel panicked on April 15th, July 15th this year, because you have to pay the IRS. So many businesses end up with payment plans to the IRS. You shouldn't have to, entrepreneurs work really hard. You don't want to have to do that. You want to, you want to set yourself up that doesn't happen to you. Or if it's happened to you, you want to set yourself up so that that's not how you always, so you're trying to away from that.
Yeah,
So,
I love that, because I mean, not a lot of people think that, because most people, not most, but a lot of people that get into business too, it's okay. Some people will take their money and keep taking too much money and put it in their pockets, but a lot of people kind of focus to grow their business. They put it right back into the business. So what you're saying basically is always set aside, whether it's 1% or a little bit more, that's going to cover you when that time does roll around. Your accountant does hit you with that big tax payment and you're just shocked and you're like, okay, I got to pay how much, instead of doing payments to the IRS, which I personally don't like doing the payments to the IRS, because you overpay, who knows if they're going to pay your money back, and so
oh yeah, no.
yeah, and I've seen that with people too, where they overpaid the payments and they still haven't gotten that money back from the
Yeah,
IRS.
no, I would never count on the IRS being quick to get your money back to you.
No, they're going to hold it as long as they can. But I love that strategy too, because it makes a lot of sense, because not a lot of people think that way. They really want to reinvest everything into the company, keep the growth, but they don't, they don't have that nest egg on the side for things like that too. So
Yeah, I mean, when you put the whole system together, you're still very growth focused, because there's a whole a process where you go through and really take a hard look at expenses and make sure that you're, just you actually rate them, whether they're profitable, whether you could get them for less, or whether it's really not needed at all. And it's often surprising what's sitting there. Then you start looking at what's making you the most money, which clients, what ones are the ones that take the least amount of time and effort but bring the greatest reward to to everything. Like for a builder, maybe some of the projects are super time consuming, you really don't make much on them, versus the really nice, the big luxury homes probably. But and you think about it, it's like, all right, if we only focused on this, how much more would we make? And you analyze that kind of stuff as well. So it's still very growth minded, even though you're setting that money aside. It's like, that's one of the things. It's a cool system, the way it balances the way human behavior is, where you don't have all of the money in that one pot, because then you think you can use it all. You just only leave in there what you can really use, and then you keep the other things set aside. So that you have them when you need them, type of thing. And then at the same time, you're working on ways to grow your business. So it's because it's a simple system, and it's not new. I mean, he didn't invent that whole system himself. He put it together in a great package, though, that really it works nicely.
yeah, no, I love that too. And one other thing too that I heard you talk about too is you've mentioned strategic tithing. And I want to go deeper into this and just explain what it is, how it's done, what are the benefits of it, because I heard you mention it, but I want to hear more about it. So what is strategic tithing?
Strategic tithing is, I've seen strategy, I've seen tithing. I haven't seen it put together in the context for businesses the way I use it. Tithing itself is a biblical term about giving 10%. And to me, it's like, why leave that in the Bible? Giving 10% is a good idea, because I'm all about how can we give more and make the world a better place, and be strategic about it. Specifically in your business, a lot of the businesses that I work with, they set up their business originally so that they would have a giving component to it. One of them's an animal hospital, and she specifically left the animal hospital where she was a surgeon because she wanted to open an animal rescue. And everybody said, well, you can't have a profitable animal hospital with a rescue on it. She's like, watch me. So that, so that's what she did. So I have clients, some of my other clients, maybe they give on the personal side, but a lot of them they have some kind of like plan with it. But as I started to study more, what are the, like, what would be the benefits of it? Because I love the idea of being strategic, like having that giving piece.
Mm-hmm.
And the research that I found is that there's lots of companies out there that they're even more profitable by giving, and then maybe they'll partner with a nonprofit, and both of them can cross market and promote each other, and it's just a lot of win-win. It's definitely more popular with now as well. Like a lot of people, I know I'm this way, if there's two companies that sell the same product, but one of them gives to something that I like I'm going to buy from them. My favorite is Tom's Shoes. I mean, that was what originally put this even on my radar. Was I love shoes anyway, but how much better to know that someone else is getting shoes when I buy shoes. But and then Blake Mycosi's story, and everything was very motivational for me. And I just love that whole idea. So to work with businesses and help businesses figure out how they can do that, or even just to start thinking about it. It's like, what could we really do? Because I have such a belief that there's tons of resources. There's plenty of everything. It just needs to be moved to a few different places.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like we just need to redistribute, sort of. Somehow.
Yeah. And it's figuring out how to too. I mean,
That's a whole process.
Yeah.
The distribution process, but.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had builders on the show. I've had a builder on this show specifically where he gives back, and I didn't get into detail how he's doing it and the numbers and everything, but he gives back to veterans, and that interested me too, because obviously coming from a family-owned business, my dad was a Vietnam veteran. And I know we'd be interested in doing something similar to veterans and I mean, that's kind of that give back thing too. And when I read that, that kind of brought that back in my head, like the whole tithing thing too. Because obviously, with tithing, I understand what it is too. You give back to the church and so on. But like on a business angle of it too, that's very interesting to try and figure out how to angle your company into doing it. And there's a lot of companies that do it. Tom's was one of the biggest ones that everybody knows about. And if to figure it out financially and how to do it the right way, especially as a builder, that interests me as well.
Yeah. And there's some organizations there's the Archangel. I went to the Archangel Summit. There is, and that's a bunch of entrepreneurs who want to give, and so a lot of that event was about growing your business, and being more profitable, as well as how you can take those profits and to help other people, and ways to just combine those activities. I went to Thrive, Make Money Matter. There's another community that does the same type of thing. So there's these communities of entrepreneurs out there. Evolve Enterprise is a book by Yannick Silver. They do this as well. For me, though, what I was seeing with these different communities, so I'm like, what events can I go to? But a lot of the companies doing that are multi-million, like 7-figure and up businesses. So for me, a lot of my clients aren't there yet, some of them, but it's sort of like, all right, so what do we do if we're, smaller? How can we still do stuff like this on a smaller scale? So that was when I started looking for ways to just, how can we just do it, whether we do it in our own communities. And there's all kinds of different creative things that you can do, whether you take volunteers from, like, as a builder, if you decided, all right, everybody, we're all going to go build a Habitat for Humanity house together, that could be the way that you give back. It could be versus buy one get one, with the shoes type of thing. Sometimes it's just serving together. With veterans, the companies that are like veteran owned and they hire veterans, that in and of itself to me is like combining it, and I guess now with more of some of the more recent stuff where different races and just ways to support like black, I have people that have black owned businesses, maybe how can you support that? Or how, for me, I'm like, how could I help businesses that maybe have been underserved? I mean, I have to find them first of all. Sure, if I ask that, I'll find them quickly. But, even if I was training people, like, can I train more bookkeepers who, how about people that, or help people learn how to manage money that just don't. And so many people, they don't teach you that in school.
No.
And the average American doesn't really know how to best manage their money. At least it doesn't look that way. Not if everyone's in debt.
No.
You
No.
know?
And that's a problem too. And I get into that with you too, with the schools and how they're teaching
Yeah.
everybody.
So, I mean, that's an area I'm like, what should I be doing with that? Those are the kinds of things I'm always looking at,
Yeah. Because
How
I
can
mean,
we-
well, people are coming. There's kids even coming out of high school. You should, at 18 years old, you should know how to financially manage your money somewhat. And a lot of these kids are coming out of school and they don't know. It's just
yeah.
spend more than you make and get out a credit card and a lot of them get in a credit card debt instead of being able to manage credit card or credit and be able to use credit towards their benefit. They're not, they're spending the limits and then they're in massive debt by the time they're whatever age. So that's a huge topic right there too, which I'm sure drives you crazy. So
Yeah, well, yeah, the college loans are just,
that too. Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole generation of people that are never going to be able to build wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, someone will come up with a way, but it's so much harder. I mean, what you want to be doing is you want to come out and start saving when you're, in your early 20s, because if you start then, the magic of compound interest, well, the magic is smaller nowadays than it used to be. The rates are so low, but still, you got it. Like, it's that consistency. Starting, the sooner you can start and consistently save. But if you're consistently paying off a student loan instead, that's no good.
No.
I mean,
No.
it needs to get paid off, but that's just not the way to start after you get out of college. It's hard enough to find a job.
Yeah, no, trust me. I 100% agree. And I mean, if people actually learned how to put their money to work more out of college rather than spend it or be stuck in financial debt because of going to college, that's one of the major issues, instead of
Yeah.
learning how to put it to work while you're there. So, and having your money work for you, which not a lot of people know how to do, unfortunately.
No, I don't think people don't talk about it that much.
No.
No.
I self-taught. I mean, I fortunately come from a dad who taught me a lot of that too, but I've also self-taught myself how to make my money work too. I've had my mistakes along the way, but that's how you learn, with stuff and stupid investments and so on, but you learn. So,
Yeah.
there's no better knowledge than actually doing, in my opinion, but anyway, so,
True.
so you're obviously great at helping people manage their money, and this show is all about helping the customer, show them what to look for in the real estate and construction industries. But I want to kind of talk about how someone can plan financially or manage their finances for the following. We touched on this one a little bit, but what about somebody that has a bunch of rental properties? How can they manage their finances with rentals? Because that's a popular thing where I'm at. The vacation rental market's exploding. A lot of people are building houses with us just to strictly rent them, and they're making good money doing it. So, what do you recommend in that area?
Oh my gosh. My main thing is you want to, when you invest, you want to make sure you're going to have a positive cash flow. That's like the main thing I can think of. And then of course, tracking it.
Yeah.
I think to me, I would hire I would want to have a property manager. I would want somebody. I wouldn't want to just invest on my own and try and figure it all out myself. I would get a professional to work with.
And then you're probably going to want a professional bookkeeper like yourself to help you rely on the track your finances too.
Yeah, unless you're good. Every now and then I run into people that like they do the QuickBooks themselves. They do it really well. They love it. It's like, really? Good.
I'm not one of those.
It's not that common. but yeah, make sure that you have the information, and And if you don't like looking at that stuff, and then definitely, if you don't feel like dealing with the numbers of it, and but you want to build wealth, find a trusted expert to look over that stuff for you. You can't just leave it to, ignore it.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, because I have a lot of these are going to be similar. Like somebody that's fixing and flipping a house, or somebody building a new home. Obviously, you're going to want somebody to help, the proper person to help manage your finances. But one thing too, I wanted to kind of get into with you too is obviously tax season just passed us. There's, I'm sure, people that filed for extensions even longer too with everything that's going on. So let's talk about some tax incentives too for people and businesses that you know about that are, there's a lot of them and so on. We brushed on some tax stuff. You working for a CPA, I'm sure you know a lot about taxes. So yeah, let's just brush on that topic a little bit too, as far as, businesses with tax incentives and so on.
I'm like, there's basic stuff that's always,
that a lot of people know
your basic
of too.
expenses.
Yeah.
Mileage is, there's mileage things. Sometimes people don't realize they can take that. And travel and
on the bookkeeping end though too, what are you finding for businesses that are more tax saving wise that you're pointing out to companies? The usual
marketing stuff. Usually I'll look and make sure it's more a matter of completion. It's like, don't you have insurance? I'm not seeing your business insurance. Is there rent? There's still, if you have a home office now, that's been around for a while. The actual specifics about it change, but the home office information is,
which most people are having now because of the COVID.
I know. So more people, that's going to be something that, you should definitely ask about that. I would expect your tax preparer to be on top of that.
Well, let's go into that a little bit more, because obviously we're dealing with the whole with the coronavirus and everything going on. So you have your clients that you've been working with, obviously taking on new clients. So how are you dealing with this as their bookkeeper? Throughout this crisis, has anything changed for you? What should people be doing to stay financially safe as a bookkeeper? Let's go into that too, because a lot of the tax incentive stuff, that's going to be with their CPA anyway. They need to have a proper accountant to handle that. You're the one that's just managing their finances prior to the accountant going to the accountant.
Yeah.
So what about with COVID and everything? Are you seeing any differences? Are you having to make any shifts as far as your business?
The main thing from a bookkeeping perspective at this point, all I have done if people are getting the PPP, which is the payroll protection, something. And then there's the EIDL or the SBA loans. I usually if they come in through the bank feed, they're labeled so I can tell. It'll say SBAD. I set them up as a loan, even though some parts might be forgiven, some might not. The rules are changing all the time. Depends when you got it. Because the rules were changing so much in the very beginning, I was like, I'm not even going, I'm like, who are my experts? There's a couple different people that I will go and listen to what they say, as well as the tax person in our BNI chapter. He's been on top of all of it. So I tell people, we're going to set it up as a loan until we hear otherwise. Whenever you get any paperwork, let me know. I've had some of my clients wanted specific reports that, and most of the time, if you have a payroll company, they have a whole bunch of like COVID related reports when you log in there that are available to you. So there's a lot of information out there, but it is important to separate things out. So if people are taking money out of, say it's the PPP, and they're using it towards payroll, and maybe they put it in one account, and they're going to transfer it in and then do the payroll. We're still tracking the payroll to payroll expense, but labeling it that it's the PPP money paid for it. In QuickBooks, if you do that in the memo field, you can print reports by that. You can sort important to keep your payroll tracked like you normally would, because all those numbers are going to have to tie in at the end of the year to the 941s, the W-2s, and all of the regular forms. So it's,
Okay.
it's mostly a matter of putting good information in your memo field is like the main, and then you can at least recreate, fix, whatever. For anything that ends up being forgiven, it also depends, because as far as I know, we still don't know whether whatever the amount is that's forgiven, is it going to have to be counted as income then, or are you not going to be allowed to take whatever you use that money and paid for as an expense somehow or another? They're not going to let you like double dip. It's actually easier if they just say count it as income, still take your expenses, because if you have to back out all those expenses instead, they'll probably do that. It's just more work for the bookkeeper, and it's not as clean, because I want to see what were my real expenses for the year. I don't want to see like, well, these were the expenses, except they weren't my real expenses because, my gift from the government came in. I don't know. I just think that makes it more confusing to look at. But we don't know exactly what. So it's sort of like, we'll have all our little labels in there, and then we'll change it when new information comes in, or journal entry it to make it go with whatever is needed for those forms that are going to need to be completed when they become available, depending on when you applied.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot to it too, obviously, because this is new to everybody, obviously, and that it's a lot of figuring out, I'm sure, still to come as well with that too. So
yeah, and they really have changed like a lot of stuff as they've gone along.
Yeah.
With the extensions and all that type of stuff. And then I guess from an individual perspective, for your unemployment that you might have gotten, that's taxable.
Yeah.
So so you're getting that money, if you're spending it all and you're not setting money aside, there's no money being withheld for you. So a lot of those people may be surprised next year because they may owe taxes. And I don't hear anyone talking about that.
No. And yeah, I think you're right. There's going to be a lot of surprises with that too, especially when the tax man comes knocking on the door saying, okay, you spent all that money. Yeah, where's my tax?
Well, plus I'm sure that the stimulus is probably going to end up as like an extra income on there somewhere.
Yeah, there's always a catch.
I did get this, for those of us that got the stimulus.
Yeah, there's always a catch to it too. It's not just free money handed to you too. I've said that to people too.
Yeah,
I've said that too. So let's I want to kind of go over your process a little bit, just so people who are thinking about hiring a bookkeeper know what to expect and so on. So what's the process with hiring somebody like yourself, and throughout the process, let's just talk about that from beginning to end. How do you go about it and so on?
What, with Clarity Finances?
Yeah.
The easiest way, it starts with a phone call, or Zoom call usually now, but you can book a call with me at my website. There's a link there, because I want to talk to whoever it is, find out what it is you're looking for, see if it's a good, if I'm a good fit. Because if Clarity Finances isn't a good fit, there's a really good chance that I know someone that is. So either way, I'm going to be able to help you in some way. But some people might just want training, like a training session. And then some people aren't sure what they need, and some people are totally know that I need to delegate this, or this is not right, help, whatever it is, type of thing. But then at that point, especially if they have QuickBooks Online, either way, I'm either going to need a copy of the QuickBooks database or access to the QuickBooks Online, so to explain how to invite me as an accountant user, because I have to see what the data is and then know what it is they need, so that I can give them an idea of what the investment would be, because it really makes a difference. And I have found if I don't see in the QuickBooks file, usually what someone tells me about their file isn't necessarily the piece of information I need to know what it's going to take to get the job done. So at which point, after I evaluate all of the pieces and figure out what is needed, then I quote and it's a monthly rate
Okay.
that based on that. And you get everything, whatever the services were, whether, because some people I just update, reconcile, send them reports. They get a monthly call with me if they choose it. Not everyone wants a monthly call with me, but you get that if you want to talk about your numbers. Some people it's just that. Some people I'm also paying bills to a whole bunch of vendors, so that's an additional service piece that's in there. But talking to me and asking me any questions that you have is always included, because years ago I found that people wouldn't call me. It's like, never call into it first. Makers of QuickBooks, please call me first, because they are really heavy into selling things. So they will sell you something you may or may not need. And then sometimes I've had to charge somebody for several hours of work to undo something, not very often, but every now and then. So it's like, please don't call them first, call me first, email me, whatever. So there was that, and having a monthly rate instead of having it fluctuate with, oh, it took me this long this time. It's that way you budget it, and you don't have to worry about calling me, like, cause some firms will bill like attorneys, like accountants will bill by the hour. This way, just because I want to work with you. It's more of like, we're collaborating to get the information you need so you can grow your business. That's my main purpose. I'm just going to take this bookkeeping piece off your plate so that you can take that time and put it on something else or whatever, and then help you use that information to grow your business.
So do you see yourself more as a permanent source to a company, or are you just a part-time source to kind of, or is it kind of a mix of both where you're full, all the,
it varies. I mean, mostly I have clients that I've had for at least 5 years that I do. I mean, some of them I'm updating their files multiple times a week, the bigger firms. Some of them, a couple are monthly, a couple are weekly, that they're updated. And so we're talking, on a regular basis to make sure they have what they need. Their accountants will also contact me, like usually around tax time. Some of them, they do quarterly reviews. So, it's like, all right, is everything up to date? Are we ready? Or here, I did the review. I need you to do this journal entry. So I'm interfacing with their CPAs as well. And then, of course, people that'll come to me that might realize that, they realize it's like, oh my gosh, I was going to do this myself, but I never did. Now I need to get it done for taxes. I need help. And they come to me, I can get everything together for them. If they don't know who they want to do their taxes, like, because sometimes usually people have somebody, but then some people don't. I can recommend, there's lots of great people I know, CPAs, CFOs, and, people that do taxes that I can recommend. So I can connect you with like whoever you need, business coaches, marketing people. So I also can connect you with like whatever it is that you need that would help you with your business.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody has a business, I recommend getting somebody to help you with your accounting and your taxes, because you could save a lot of money. So instead of going on, what's the one where you can just go online and they'll do it real quick for you. Now you need a professional that can help you save money and taxes and expenses too, and also with bookkeeping too, like we've been talking about.
And I mean, there are online bookkeeping options. It depends what you want. Some bookkeeping firms will keep the data and just send out the reports. And then for me, most of my clients I always give you access to your data. If for some reason you want to, you don't want to work with me anymore, I am not going to hold your data hostage. That I don't want to do that. I know that's happened to people. I've gotten people that we've had to recreate stuff because that happened. So that's something you want to make sure, do you have access? Most of my clients, they are users in the QuickBooks Online. Some accountants hate that because then someone will go in and mess up the stuff they did. But for the most part, my people don't do that. So But I want you to be able to have the access that you need, and I want to collaborate with you, giving you as much support as you need to get what you need to, to move your business forward. So that's, even if I do have some clients that they don't have QuickBooks at all, but even those people, I'll put them on my desktop because I have multiple years of the desktop version.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll put them on the latest version, but I will make sure that I give them the backup copy, even though technically they don't know what to do with it really, except I keep reminding them. I said, if something, this is a copy for you. If you need to, you can take it to any accountant or other bookkeeper that has QuickBooks, and they will be able to open it and get you your data. Like, I don't know, if something happens to me, like or something, I want you to have it too. So I'm always trying to think about, if probably from all the years of working part-time for that accounting firm, I always had to have everything like documented so that because somebody was always, especially during tax season, somebody was always coming in on the days that I was off and taking files off my desk and finishing and pushing things through the rest of the process. So I'm very trained to like make sure that everything's accessible to other people, that people can cover, type of thing.
Which is a good thing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So getting towards the end here, I always like asking this. This is one of the highlight questions of the show. It's a deep question, so be ready for this one. So it's more personal. So, I mean, you've built an amazing company. You're helping a lot of people. Obviously, what you do is so important. I brushed on this too. More and more people should think about hiring somebody like yourself, to keep their companies stable and like we talked about this whole entire show. So, I mean, what lessons have you learned throughout your journey that we should all apply to our own businesses or our own personal lives that can help us grow? Deep question. And I've gotten a different answer every time. So
I feel like there's so much about, for me, learning about mindset. Like there was a point where I had not heard of that word about 7 years ago. And that was learning about mindset and that you can change it was like definitely life changing for me and changed a lot of the things about my business. Around that time, in that process was what's important to me is I want to love my clients. I don't want to work with anybody that I'm not happy to see the phone ring or something and happy to answer the phone. So I made a determination that I just wasn't going to work with anyone I didn't want to work with anymore. And I have found that even if like I have to part ways with a client, that another better client always comes in right away. Like, so the idea of having to suffer through with somebody that's not a good fit as an entrepreneur, I don't think that's ever worth it. Mm-hmm. So there's that, but definitely. And the other thing is that a number of years ago, I kind of struggled. Like I want to have fun when I work and I want it to feel fun. And for a while I kind of thought I didn't really want to work because I just wanted to have fun. And then I realized that actually I've been involved with, it's just been more on the volunteer side, a lot of things that were really hard work that I had fun doing. And when I realized that actually it's not that I don't want to work hard, but I do want to have fun doing it. So I was like, I'm just going to be determined to have fun doing whatever I'm doing. So that was a mindset shift too, I guess. Money in abundance, that there's enough for everybody, and that if I have a lot doesn't mean someone else is going to be shorted. That's actually not how it really is, and how pervasive that belief is. How we kind of think that the bad rich guys. So there's definitely a philosophy. Like we all want to have some, but if you have too much, like that whole like that's kind of evil thing. And I don't think money makes somebody evil. I think money's a magnifier. It just shows more of who you are. Mm-hmm. So to me, I'd love to see like the giving, caring people who want to make the world a better place. I'd love to see them be more successful and do more of that and serve more people.
Yeah, no, I love that right there. The mindset thing's huge too, because when, like you said, when you focused on that word mindset, everything changed, and it was such a
Mhm.
big thing to you. And I'm the same way. When you start working on yourself and your mindset, and you change that, it's huge, and it turns you into a better person and makes you want to better yourself and do stuff and learn more and do things to better yourself as an entrepreneur. But also, I mean, I agree with you 100%. People think money is the root of all evil. Let's put it that way, which it's not. What you said right there is huge. That money can bring out the bad in some people, but it brings out the good in a lot more people. There is a lot of people that you don't hear about because we're used to hearing about the bad, and especially with the media these days,
Yeah.
because that's what gets the looks and the views and so on. But there is a lot of good people out there with money that are doing good things with money too, and and I'm a big believer in that. God gives us the opportunity to make money, and it
Mhm.
says we're supposed to work. You don't work, you're not going to get to have success. It's plain and simple. And I'm a big advocate on that. So I love what you said right there. That was awesome. Spot on. So another question I've been asking everybody too is, obviously I talk about your past, but I always want to hear about the future. So where will we see Julie in 5-10 years from now? Who will you be?
I don't know. I have this, I just started talking about this too. It's like, what do I really want to do? Because I mean, I believe bookkeeping is important, um, and it's practical and it's needed. But I'm passionate about using the information, but actually sitting there and crunching the numbers, I don't have to do that the rest of my life. I think, but anything that's related to healing, like even just, well, the whole idea with COVID and coming out and that so much going back and forth about um, what it takes to heal from it, what works, what doesn't, and all of that stuff has been, I've been watching that, and I was like, what's the truth with this? Where do you
Mhm.
get real healing? How come, So there's that piece, and then another thing that I've noticed is in the circles that I'm involved in, and just a lot of the women that I know, there's so many women that are working on healing themselves, healing others, doing, like, whether it's coaching or energy healing, or just all kinds of spiritual things. And I see lots of women doing that. And I'm wondering, there's got to be men doing it too, but I'm like, who are the men that are helping the men? Because I have sons, and I think I'm like, here's all these women, we're all like healing and growing and whatever, transforming.
Mhm.
Are the men doing that too? Who are we going to hang out with? Like I don't know. This is just like in the last few weeks. I'm like, who's helping men heal? Like heal, like emotional healing, like that kind of, things like that. It's because it's. I think it's harder for because men don't sit around and talk about stuff like that. Women will sit and talk about stuff like that. I feel like, that's, so it needs to be done in a different way even. And
Mhm.
so it's just, that's something I'm like, I would like to be part of that, whatever way. Although I feel here as a woman, I can't be the direct person, but it's like, who are the people doing that and how can I support them? That's been in my head. So I don't know what that's going to look like, but I figure I'll be about something healing related over the next few years.
Why not? Awesome. Yeah. Great. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, that's. I mean, you are right. Men don't like to talk about their problems. I mean, they might here and there to each other, but more men are. We try and be as manly as we can. So to heal a guy from any kind of issues or anything, it's something. Yeah, it's a good way to think about it too. So yeah, definitely too. And last question, what the show's all about. What exactly do people need to look for when hiring a bookkeeper, and why should they choose Julie Shopa as their bookkeeper of choice?
Well, one of the things that I had said before is make sure you know whether you have access or not to your data, because if that matters, if you want to be able to get in there too, that's important. you want to make sure that, because some people would say, oh, make sure the person's certified with this or that. And that's good. It's helpful, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're really going to, that's not a given that they'll be good just because they're certified. I know when I talk to other bookkeepers as far as partnering with them, I have questions that I'll ask just to see, have they worked with a bunch of different companies? Like, you want to know, are they experienced in the industry that you're in? That's important to know. You want to know if they're going to be able to work with your CPA. How often are they going to contact you? I'm trying to think what else is a key thing that you can, I guess a lot of things is just making sure that the communication flow is clear and you're going to get what you want to get. That type of thing is important. And knowledge of your industry, I think, is really important as well. I would definitely, I would ask for some kind of testimonials or reference. Now it's usually more testimonials. It's super helpful if people that have recommended this person, people that you know and trust, especially depending on your level of knowledge. If you don't know what you're looking at, you really want to make sure that you can trust the person that's going to be guiding you. So that's why I love when I get to work with somebody that has a trusted CPA, because I know that CPA is watching over my work. And that's an assurance for all of us. And that's usually an area. I don't get to do this very often. For some reason, I don't end up meeting, especially in person, with a CPA and a client very often. But when I do, I always get feedback from the client where they're like surprised at the level of conversation between myself and the CPA, and their CPA always tells them that they're in good hands. So that's kind of cool. So if you can get like your CPA to watch over your bookkeeper, it's kind of cool to have them separate because it's two sets of eyes. Although there's plenty of CPA firms that do give bookkeeping services. So, which can also be fine because you do at least have two sets of eyes from within that firm, usually. I think that's mainly, I'm trying to think.
And why should they choose Julie Shopa as their bookkeeper of choice?
Well, they should choose me especially if they want to do profit first in their business. If they are passionate about giving in their business, then we will be very like-minded and excited about the same things as far as that goes. And I mean, I have been doing this my entire adult life. I'm very experienced. I have resources, like other resources that are complementary to the bookkeeping piece. So I do a little more than just your average bookkeeper has to offer, which is, if you're growing, if you're not growing your business and you're just trying to maintain, then you might not necessarily, because I'm passionate about working with entrepreneurs that want to grow their business.
Yeah.
So.
Which is, so important too. I mean, and no, this has been awesome because like I said, what you do is so important. It really is a big thing that there's not a lot of people there's people that think about it, but more people need to think about hiring somebody like yourself, just because the finances of a company is what obviously is the structure of a company. And there's people out there that aren't thinking about it unless you have somebody in-house. I mean, we have somebody in-house well, my sister's the one that does our QuickBooks too. So there's the trust factor right there. But I'm sure there's even stuff that she could learn from a person like yourself too, that she would probably be like, wow, I didn't even know that, because there's always something to learn. And we talked about that too, but no, Julie, this has been awesome. What you're doing is awesome. So keep it up too. And it's been great having you on today as well. Last thing too, where can people find and connect with you?
Well, my website is clarityfinances.com. Julie at clarityfinances.com is my email. So those are the two easiest things, would be to email me or look at my website and you can contact me through there.
Social media.
Oh, yeah, I'm on there too. Sorry about that. Clarity Finances has a Facebook page. Instagram is strategic tithing. Yeah, my branding across things. And I'm on LinkedIn as well. I think that's probably Julie Shopa, Bookkeeping, etc. That's what the company was called before I named it something that's easier to spell. Yeah. So yes, but if you like, basically, if you Google Julie Shopa, you know,
Everything will come
stuff
up.
comes
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, Julie, this has been great. I really do appreciate your time today. Obviously, I know you're busy too, so thank you for taking the time. It's been awesome.
No,
I've
thank you
learned
for
a
having
lot.
me.
So I mean, there's stuff that obviously I can probably keep this show going for 2 hours because it's so important. No, I mean the finance end of things, like I keep emphasizing, and everybody knows that's in business how important this really is too. And there's so many other topics we could touch on too as well, but no, I really do appreciate you. And thank you all for listening. And I will see you guys on the next episode.